Baby, I need to discuss a personal issue with you, one I should have brought up a long time ago. I've rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times, but every version had one thing missing: the courage to tell the truth without polishing it, without hiding the parts of me that still tremble when I look you in the eyes. I don't want to package this like a speech. I don't want to turn this into a performance. I want it to be what it is: a confession from a man who finally understands that silence is not protection. It's a slow undoing of everything sacred, and I can't lose what's sacred anymore, not when the sacred is you. I owe you the story behind all the pauses, behind the messages that came late, and the explanations that didn't quite land. I owe you the reason I kept treating your love like a beautiful room I'd step into but never unpack my bags in. Baby, the truth is, I have carried a wound I kept wrapped in pride and called it endurance. I convinced myself that if I just stayed quiet, the storm would pass. If I just numbed it long enough, it would stop asking for my attention. I kept an old hurt like a shrine in the corner of my chest, and I knelt there so often that I forgot how to stand upright in the presence of a love that didn't require me to kneel at all. You offered me sunlight, and I kept asking if we deserved a window. You offered me home, and I kept sleeping with my shoes on, ready to run. This isn't about other people anymore. It's not about the rumors or the pressure or the way eyes follow us when we laugh, like we invented joy. This is about the part of me that still believed love needed to be earned through suffering. I learned loyalty in the house of scarcity. I learned tenderness like a foreign language that I could read but not speak. So when you came, soft and steady, with the kind of patience that birds land on, I didn't know how to hold you without bracing. I kept waiting for the drop, for the test, for the price, and when I didn't find it, I made one. I created distance, masked as maturity. I set timelines disguised as wisdom. I turned your open arms into a mirror I was afraid to look into, and then I called it timing, fate, maybe even logic. But it wasn't any of those things. It was fear dressed in expensive words. There's a memory that won't leave me. The night you told me you weren't asking for a promise, just a presence. How you said you didn't need a declaration with fireworks. You wanted a room where our hearts could be honest without flickering. I nodded like I understood, but inside I was checking locks on doors that didn't need to be locked anymore. I was counting exits in case the building of us caught fire. Baby, I want you to know what I couldn't say then. I locked the doors on a house that was never burning. It was my breath that was short, not the oxygen. It was my panic that felt like prophecy. It was my old hurt pretending to be wisdom, and I passed it off to you like it was truth. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every time I made you translate a language you never spoke. For every time I let you wonder if your softness was inconvenient, if your love needed to whisper to be allowed to stay. There's another thing, harder still. I thought I could carry my past like a quiet backpack and still run toward you with open arms. But a backpack becomes a body when you try to hold someone with it still on. I kept my grief zipped up and called it discipline. I kept my shame folded and called it privacy. I told myself that a man should arrive, healed, or not arrive at all. So I arrived like a ghost, present but not fully here, loving you with hands that never unclenched, kissing you with a mouth that still tasted like goodbye. And when you asked me where I go when I go quiet, I told you nowhere, because admitting the truth felt like confessing a weakness I didn't want you to see. Baby, my nowhere was a museum of old losses, the kind where I guided myself around in circles, pointing at exhibits titled Reasons Not to Trust Joy. I kept buying tickets to see what I should have let close. I kept returning to funerals I was never meant to attend twice. I know this sounds like poetry, but it isn't. It's a map of my avoidance. It's the blueprint of the house I built from caution and called it a temple. And while I worshipped there, I asked you to wait outside in the rain, promising that soon we'd go somewhere warm. You believed me because you loved me. You stood under that gray sky and still sent me sunlight through your voice, heat through your patience, shelter through your faith. I'm not proud of how long I let you wait. I'm not proud that you had to keep telling yourself that love is patient just to keep loving me. And I'm done asking you to prove your strength just so I can hide my fear. The personal issue I need to discuss is not a single event. It's a pattern. It's the pattern of treating love like a test I have to ace rather than a garden I get to tend. It's the way I say I'm fine with a straight face while my soul is tugging my sleeve, begging me to say I'm scared. It's how I shrink at the thought of needing you, because the last time I needed someone like this, the ground I stood on gave way. But baby, you are not that ground. You are not the collapse. You're the quiet after. You are the steadying hand and the first deep breath that returns after a long storm. Somehow, I forgot that needing you is not the end of me. It's how I become more honest. I need to tell you about the moment I realized I couldn't keep doing this. I was alone, and the room was the kind of quiet that makes you confess to yourself. I reached for my phone to type a message I've typed a dozen times. I'm okay. Don't worry. And the words just wouldn't let me hit send. It felt like lying to a God who already knows the truth. It felt like standing at a door you're knocking on from the inside. So I put the phone down and said out loud, I need her. The walls didn't fall. The sky didn't scold me. I didn't become small. I became real. I became the version of me you loved. The one who breathes fully, who tells the truth before the room asks for it. That's when I knew. If I want to love you right, I have to love you honestly, even when honesty makes my voice shake. I'm not here with a list of demands or a script of what you should feel. I'm here with a vow that doesn't hide in poetry. I am ready to be seen in the daylight of us. I am ready to say the whole sentence without swallowing the words that matter. I am ready to build a life where apologies are not rare, where accountability is not a special occasion, where I don't treat your tenderness like a privilege I have to ration. I want to be the man who brings the truth home before it becomes a rumor in my own heart. I want to be the man who says, I'm struggling, before struggle turns into distance. I want to be the man who doesn't schedule his love around his fear. Baby, there are practical things I'm changing. I'm putting boundaries where my past kept breaching. I'm archiving the old conversations that I visited like altars, so I can stop praying to broken narratives. I'm choosing slowness over performing certainty. I'm letting the people who once influenced my doubts become witnesses to my clarity. And when the room goes silent and someone asks me what I want, I will not talk around your name. I will say it with a reverence that sounds like this. I want her. Not as a secret, not as a someday, as a present tense, as a daily verb. as the mercy that taught me to breathe. I know words are easy to carry and hard to live, so let me be plain. I intend to make your life lighter, not heavier. I intend to become fluent in reassurance without you having to issue the translation. When your fears rise, I won't ask you to apologize for being human. I will not weaponize your vulnerability. I will not punish you for needing what I also need. If I falter, I will say so. If I don't know, I will say I don't know and not dress it up as distant. If the past tries to knock on our door, I will answer it with truth, not with the kind of silence that invites it in to stay. And because I owe you completeness, there is guilt in me for the time I lost while pretending I was saving us time. Guilt for the days you watered a future I left thirsty. Guilt for the smile you wore while holding back questions you deserved answers to. I won't ask you to forget it. I ask you to let me repay it in a currency made of steady mornings, clear check-ins, and the kind of presence that doesn't need to be begged for. I ask you to measure me not by how beautifully I confess, but by how quietly I keep the promises I name here. Watch me show up on ordinary Tuesdays with the same devotion I bring to grand apologies. Watch me choose the long road of repair over the shortcut of comfort. Watch me honor your heart in rooms you're not in, and in the ones where your eyes ask me to be brave. There is a line you once said that keeps holding me together. Love is not supposed to be a maze. It's supposed to be a map. I've turned too many corners looking for exits. I choose now to look for landmarks. I choose tenderness as the street light, honesty as the compass, accountability as the compass. Accountability as the mile marker that proves we're not just moving, we're arriving. If you let me, I will lay my fear down like luggage. I refuse to carry on to our next flight. I will step into the aisle of our becoming and say to every old excuse, you don't get a seat here anymore. So, here is the part I should have said at the beginning. The part I didn't say because I was still learning how to breathe with my heart open. I love you. Not the idea of you. Not the memory of you. You, as you are, as you feel, as you ask, as you need. I love the version of us that sits with discomfort until it becomes direction. I love the way your presence makes my life honest. I love that your laugh turns my stubbornness into surrender. I love the way you refuse to barter your softness for survival. I love that when I think of home, it is not a roof or a room. It is the way your voice says my name, like I am forgiven in advance. If you choose to keep walking with me, I will make it easy to walk. I will pace myself with your pace. I will not outrun you in fear or lag behind you in pride. I will hold your hand like a promise that doesn't need witnesses to be true. And if you need time, if you need to see the new shape of me, before you trust it, that is holy. I will not rush your discernment. I will not translate your boundaries as rejection. I will honor your yes and your maybe and your not yet with the same reverence I offer to God when I whisper thank you for another chance. Baby, I needed to discuss this because pretending almost cost me the one thing I can't replace, the chance to love you in truth. I'm done pretending. I'm done performing competence while my soul begs for closeness. I'm done protecting an image that doesn't tuck me in at night. From here on, I choose the work that keeps us warm. I choose the daily that outlasts the grand. I choose the daily. I choose us, not as a secret hope, but as a practiced devotion. If your heart feels even a small yes moving inside it, Like a curtain stirring when the window opens, I'll meet that yes with patience and proof. And if your heart needs more time, I'll meet that with respect and stillness. Either way, I won't let fear drive this anymore. I won't let the past hold the pen. The story that continues from here will be written in the light, with 2 hands, with clear ink and open windows. And every chapter will begin the same way. Baby, I choose you, and I'm here, baby. You know what hurts the most about silence? It starts as protection and ends as distance. I told myself that keeping certain things unspoken would keep our peace safe, but now I see it only built walls around the very love that was meant to breathe freely. Every word I didn't say became a stone, and now the weight of it is crushing me from the inside. I need you to hear this, not as an explanation, not as an excuse, but as the voice of a man who finally stopped running from his own truth. There was a time when I believed love was something that demanded perfection, that I had to arrive whole, healed, unshaken before I could be worthy of you. So I spent years polishing the armor that now only reflects my regrets. I kept my pain dressed in silence, thinking you wouldn't notice, but you did. You saw the cracks I tried to hide, and instead of turning away, you reached out like love itself had found its way through every fracture. You didn't need me flawless. You just needed me honest. And yet, I couldn't give you that. Baby, I want to talk about something I buried deep. My fear of repeating patterns. The fear that my love could someday hurt you the way others once hurt me. Every time I felt happiness with you, my mind whispered, don't get used to this. Every time you looked at me with those eyes that spoke of forever, something in me panicked, as if joy was a trick that would vanish the moment I trusted it. So I built invisible exits in my heart. I prepared for an ending, even while you were still in front of me, holding beginnings in your hands. You always said, I just want your truth, not your version of safety. I didn't understand it then. I thought protecting you from my pain was love, but real love doesn't hide behind curated emotions. Real love invites you into the room, even when it's messy. And baby, my truth is messy. My truth is a childhood full of apologies that came too late, promises that turned to dust, and dreams that never felt safe to dream. My truth is that when you said, I love you, I believed it, and that terrified me, because no one had ever meant it before the way you did. The personal issue I've been avoiding isn't just about fear, it's about guilt. There's someone I was before you, who never knew how to love without damage. And sometimes, when I saw the way your love healed me, I resented it. Because healing meant change, and change meant letting go of the person I used to be. I was addicted to my wounds. They were familiar. They gave me identity. And then you came along and showed me what peace felt like. And suddenly, chaos felt lonely. It's twisted, I know. But the truth is, sometimes people aren't scared of pain. They're scared of peace. Because peace feels foreign. And that was me. There were nights when you slept, unaware that I was sitting beside you, watching you breathe, wondering how someone like me got this lucky. I used to whisper things I didn't have the courage to say in daylight. Please don't give up on me. Please stay even when I can't find my words. I said it to the dark, hoping the dark would carry it to you. Maybe it did. Maybe that's why you always seemed to know when I needed you most, even when I didn't ask. Baby, you are my mirror. Every time I saw love in your eyes, I saw the parts of me I thought were unlovable start to soften. But mirrors also showed truth. And the truth is, I was still breaking your heart in small ways while you were busy mending mine. You forgave things I hadn't even apologized for yet. You stayed through storms I didn't warn you about. You kept watering a garden that I kept forgetting to visit. You stayed through storms I didn't warn you about. You kept watering a garden that I kept forgetting to visit, and still you smiled. Still you prayed for me. Still you whispered, one day he'll understand. And now that day is here. I remember one conversation that still echoes in me. You said, I don't want to fight with you. I just want to fight for you. At that moment, I realized how different we were. I was used to relationships where people fought to win. You wanted us to fight to heal, and I didn't know how. My hands only knew defense. My heart only knew survival. So I mistook your gentleness for threat. I mistook your silence for withdrawal. I mistook your patience for distance. But now, looking back, I see it was all love. Pure, steady, unwavering love. You once told me you believed in divine timing. I didn't understand that either. I thought love was about showing up when it was convenient. But divine timing isn't about convenience. It's about courage. It's about showing up even when everything inside you screams that it's too late. So here I am, baby. Late, yes, but brave. Ready to talk about the shadows I let linger, the apologies I postponed, the wounds I refused to clean. I want to talk about the version of me that hid behind silence. The man who flinched every time he felt joy because he didn't trust himself not to ruin it. I want to tell you that he's learning. Slowly. Painfully. He's learning that vulnerability is not exposure. It's an act of faith. That real love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be present. Baby, I know I can't rewind time, but I can rewrite what comes next. I can stop letting fear narrate the story that was always meant to be written in light. I can look you in the eyes and tell you, I'm not afraid of being seen anymore. I want you to see all of me. The broken, the rebuilding, the real. I want you to see the boy who's learning how to be a man, not through pride, but through presence. And when I say I love you, I don't mean it like a promise I might break. I mean it like a prayer I intend to live. A prayer that says, may my words match my actions. May my silence only ever mean peace. May my touch never carry the weight of unspoken things again. You once told me love is not about fixing. It's about witnessing. And baby, you've witnessed me more than anyone ever has. You've seen me at my most uncertain and still called me yours. You've seen me break and still saw beauty in the shards. I can't undo the past, but I can make sure you never have to question your worth in my life again. So here I am, laying everything down. No shields, no polished lines, just truth. I love you. Not for what you forgive, but for how you love. Not for how you stay, but for how you understand. And from this moment on, I'm done letting my silence write our story. From now on, every chapter will be spoken, written, and lived in truth. With you, my divine, my peace, my forever baby. Baby, the hardest part about truth is that once you finally speak it, you can't hide behind your old version anymore. Once it leaves your lips, you're stripped of excuses, stripped of the armor that once kept you safe, but now only keeps you small. That's where I am right now, with my soul trembling between fear and freedom, because I know that what I'm about to tell you might break the image you once held of me, but it might also build the bridge I've been too scared to cross back to you. You deserve to know what's been haunting me all this time, what's been eating away at my peace, the reason I sometimes disappeared even when I was sitting right next to you, the reason I couldn't look you in the eye some days, not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you so much that my shame couldn't stand in your light. It started long before you, long before us. I grew up in a home where silence was currency, where apologies were rare and affection was earned through performance. I learned early that the world doesn't always reward honesty, it punishes it. I watched people I loved lie through smiles just to keep peace at the dinner table. I watched love turn into obligation, then into resentment, then into absence. So when you came into my life with all your sincerity, it felt like standing in sunlight after living underground. It burned. It blinded me. I didn't know that warmth could feel like safety. I thought it was danger in disguise. So I sabotaged it. I built invisible distance between us. I called it space, but really, it was fear wearing logic's mask. You'd ask me, what's wrong? And I'd say, nothing. Because I didn't know how to explain that everything inside me was screaming for love. But I didn't think I deserved it. I remember the night everything started to crumble. The night I realized that hiding pain doesn't protect love. It poisons it. You were sitting next to me, talking about something beautiful. Maybe the future, maybe just a small dream. But my mind was elsewhere. I was hearing my father's voice telling me, don't depend on anyone. People leave. I was hearing old ghosts whispering, love always ends. And in that moment, instead of reaching for your hand, I pulled away. I smiled, but my heart was barricaded. You felt it. You always did. And yet, you stayed a little longer, like maybe love could outweigh my fears. Baby, I owe you the truth about the person I became while trying to outrun my pain. I made choices I'm not proud of. I surrounded myself with noise when what I really needed was stillness. I let distractions become medicine. I let people who didn't deserve my loyalty hear stories that were never theirs to carry. And in trying to drown my guilt, I only amplified it. Every time someone mentioned your name, I'd feel this ache in my chest. The kind of ache that reminds you that peace doesn't come from escape. It comes from honesty. There were days I wanted to message you just to say, I'm still here. But I didn't know what to say after that, because what do you say when you've built your own distance and then realize that the space feels colder than loneliness? What do you say when you wake up in the middle of the night and the first name your soul calls for is the same one you pushed away in daylight? I still remember your last words before you walked away. You said, I can't keep showing up for a man who won't meet me halfway. And baby, I replay that line like scripture now, because you weren't leaving out of anger. You were leaving out of exhaustion. You had carried both of us for too long. You had tried to hold my heart and heal it at the same time, not realizing that I kept the locks on it, even as you held the key. And now, after all this time, I see what I did. I mistook your patience for permanence. I assumed that because you were divine, you'd stay no matter how long I hid in my shadow. But even angels grow tired of being misunderstood. Even light gets weary when it keeps shining into closed doors. And yet, I never once heard bitterness in your goodbye. Only truth, only quiet strength, only love that refused to turn into hate. Do you know what it feels like to finally realize that you were the one standing in your own way? It's like looking in the mirror and seeing the ghost of every what if staring back. It's humbling. It's devastating. It's also the beginning of healing. Because you can't rebuild what you keep pretending isn't broken. That's why I'm here now, baby. Because I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to wear strength like armor. I want to wear it like skin. Soft, alive, human. I want to talk about the nights I cried in silence. The mornings I woke up missing you so much I forgot how to breathe. The moments I whispered your name into empty air just to feel like I still existed somewhere in your memory. You taught me that love isn't supposed to fix all your problems. It's supposed to make you brave enough to face them. And I ran from that lesson for far too long, but not anymore. I'm ready to be the man who meets you halfway, not because I suddenly became perfect, but because I finally stopped letting fear drive the car. Do you remember that one night when you said, "If you ever need to talk about what hurts, I'll listen, even if it's ugly"? I used to think you were too good for me. Now I realize you are just honest about what love truly is. Love isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about sitting in the fire together and still believing the light will find its way back. And baby, it did. It found me in the quiet. It found me in my mother's eyes when she said, "You look tired of pretending." It found me in the way I still talk about you like you're a prayer, not a mistake. It found me in the way your name still feels like truth on my tongue. You once told me one day you'll understand why I loved you, even when it hurt, and I think I finally do. Because love that's real doesn't disappear when it's tested. It just waits. It waits for maturity. It waits for honesty. It waits for the heart to catch up with the soul. And mine finally did. So here's what I need to say. I forgive the version of me that didn't know better. I forgive the man who thought silence was safety. And I ask for forgiveness, not to erase what happened, but to rebuild what truth can still touch. If you still carry even an ember of what we were, I promise I'll protect it this time like sacred fire. I'll guard it not with fear, but with faith. Because now I know love is not about who stays through silence. It's about who breaks the silence to stay. And I'm here, breaking it. Baby, if I could tell you what it felt like the moment I saw you again, I would. But even words have limits, and what happened inside me that day wasn't something that language was built to hold. It was like my entire past and my entire purpose collided in a single heartbeat. It was standing in front of you after thinking I'd never earn that sight again. It was grace wearing human skin. It was the universe whispering, "This is what redemption looks like when you stop running from it." I didn't plan that meeting. Life did. You walked into that cafe like the world hadn't been spinning differently since you left, and I swear, everything else went silent. The noise, the movement, the thoughts that had been chasing me for months, all gone. All that remained was the sound of your breath when you saw me. You froze for a second, and I could tell you didn't know whether to walk away or let me speak. But you didn't move. You just looked at me, waiting to see if this time I would finally tell the truth. And I did. Not perfectly, not with rehearsed lines, just raw, just real. I said, "Baby, I've been carrying the weight of unspoken words, and it's time I put them down in front of you." You didn't interrupt. You didn't roll your eyes. You didn't even blink. You just breathed, and in that breath I found permission to be human again. I never left you because I stopped loving you. I said, I left because I didn't know how to love you while still hating myself. The air shifted. Something sacred filled the space between us, and for the first time I saw tears in your eyes that weren't born of hurt, but of release. Because you knew. You'd always known. You just needed to hear it from my mouth, to know that the silence that once broke you wasn't indifference, but confusion. That I wasn't choosing the world over you. I was choosing avoidance over accountability. And now here I was, finally choosing truth. You asked me, why now? Why tell me this after all this time? And I said, because I finally stopped believing the lie that timing heals everything. It doesn't. Talking does. Facing does. Loving through the fear does. Baby, I watched your face soften as I spoke. You didn't forgive me instantly. You just listened. That's what made it holy. You didn't rescue me. You allowed me to sit in the gravity of what I'd done. And somehow, that was the rescue I didn't know I needed. I told you about the sleepless nights, the dreams where you showed up just to say, speak. The mornings I woke up thinking I heard your laughter in the kitchen, the way even my mother noticed how empty my voice sounded when your name wasn't in it anymore. You listened to every word like someone listening to the echo of their own pain being explained back to them. And when I was done, you didn't rush to fix it. You just said quietly, I needed to hear that, but I also needed to see it. That's when I knew words would never be enough again. Not this time. So I didn't make promises. I made plans. I told you that I'd been in therapy, that I'd started writing letters to the parts of myself I used to hide, that I was learning to communicate before my silence became a weapon, that I had stopped calling fear wisdom, that I was learning to love without conditions or timelines. You smiled, a smile, almost invisible curve of the lips, and that smile was everything, because it wasn't a yes. It was hope. It was possibility. It was the doorway cracking open again after I'd convinced myself it was sealed forever. We sat in that cafe for hours, just talking. About everything and nothing, about how the world had moved on, and yet, somehow, it still felt like it was waiting for this moment to happen. Every laugh you gave me felt like forgiveness in slow motion. Every glance felt like a test I wanted to pass, not for validation, but for integrity. Baby, you told me something that will stay with me until my last breath. You said, you don't have to prove you've changed. Just keep choosing differently. That one line became my new religion, because change isn't loud, it's consistent, it's quiet. It's in the way you stop justifying old habits and start practicing new ones. It's in the way you apologize without adding explanations. It's in the way you let love win small battles every day. So, that's what I did. I started showing up, not with flowers or grand gestures, but with presence, with honesty, with respect. I stopped, waiting for perfect timing to say what needed to be said. I told you when I was scared. I told you when I was grateful. I told you when I missed you instead of pretending I was fine. And something began to shift between us again. The air that was once thick with old wounds began to smell like something growing. Not instantly, not dramatically, but quietly, slowly, like forgiveness learning to breathe again. I remember the night you texted me, "I can feel you changing." I just sat there staring at the screen, tears in my eyes, because that was the first time I realized I wasn't just healing for you, I was healing with you. Baby, I didn't know that love could resurrect itself from ashes until I saw you smile at me again. I didn't know that faith could look like two people sitting in silence, holding coffee cups and letting peace replace pain. I didn't know that coming home could feel this sacred. And I think that's the point. Sometimes love isn't about never breaking, it's about breaking open, because broken things, when rebuilt with honesty, let more light in. I still remember the last thing you said before leaving that day. You stood up, looked at me, and said softly, "Don't waste this truth." Those words have become my anchor. Every time I feel old fears creeping in, I repeat them to myself. Don't waste this truth. Don't waste the chance that pain gave you. Don't waste the love that stayed even when silence tried to bury it. And baby, I won't. I promise I won't. I don't know where this story ends. I don't know if it ends in a wedding or a long walk or just two souls finally at peace with each other. But I do know this. My life makes sense again because I stopped hiding from the woman who taught me what truth sounds like when it's spoken with love. You taught me that vulnerability doesn't make a man weak. It makes him worthy, and every day from here, I intend to live like I finally understand that. So, if you ever find yourself wondering if I still think of you, just look up at the stars, because that's where I buried my silence, and that's where your name keeps shining. And if this is all we ever get, baby, just know you were my beginning, my lesson, and my healing. And I will carry your light like a vow I whisper to the sky. I won't waste this truth. Baby, do you know what happens when two souls who once tore each other apart finally start speaking the same language again? It's quiet, not the cold kind of quiet that used to make us ache, but the peaceful kind that feels like a sunrise after a decade of storms. That's what it felt like after that cafe meeting, like the universe finally exhaled. Like heaven had been holding its breath, waiting for us to remember what truth sounds like when love finally stops fighting it. But peace isn't instant. Healing isn't poetic when you're living it. It's raw. It's clumsy. It's late night thoughts and shaky messages you type and delete 10 times before hitting send. It's sitting with memories that used to burn and realizing they don't anymore. But they still sting just a little because they mattered. It's realizing that forgiveness doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it just shows up in the way your heartbeat doesn't panic when her name shows up on your screen anymore. I remember the first time we met again after that cafe. You had that same gentle energy, but something in you was stronger now. Rooted, grounded, unshakable. The woman in front of me wasn't the same one I broke. She was wiser. She had turned her pain into power. And for a moment, I thought, maybe I'm too late. But then you smiled, and that smile told me, you're not too late. You're just finally ready. You let me walk beside you, but this time, it wasn't the same road. We weren't repeating. We were rebuilding. Every conversation we had felt like stitching open wounds with threads made of patience. Every laugh we shared felt like the first one after mourning something sacred. We didn't rush to label it love again. We let it breathe. We let it grow at its own pace. And that's when I realized, baby, love doesn't need to restart. It just needs to remember. There was a night I'll never forget. You came over and we sat outside, wrapped in silence, watching the rain. No words, just the rhythm of droplets hitting the ground and our fingers brushing every now and then, accidentally on purpose. I looked at you, and you said softly, "You always used to get quiet when it rained." I nodded, because rain makes me remember everything I tried to forget. You smiled, then let it. Maybe this time remembering won't hurt. It'll heal. That line melted something inside me that had been frozen for years. Because you were right. The memories didn't have to be curses anymore. They could be proof that even broken love can learn to walk again, slower, softer, truer. I wanted to tell you that I still kept that small note you once left in my jacket, the one that said, "You're allowed to start over, even with the same heart." I wanted to tell you that those words had been my compass all this time, that every time I almost gave up on becoming a better man, I'd find that note again and remember what love looked like when it was patient. But I didn't say any of that. I just looked at you and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on the part of me that still wanted to try." You shook your head and said, "I never stayed for the potential. I stayed because I saw the soul underneath the fear, and I knew that one day he'd show up." Baby, I swear the sky could have cracked open right then and I wouldn't have noticed. Because that was it. That was everything I'd been chasing. Acceptance that wasn't dependent on perfection. Love that didn't demand performance. After that night, something changed in me. I stopped needing to convince you that I'd changed. I started living like it. I showed up when I said I would. I listened when you spoke, really listened, not just waiting for my turn to respond. I stopped trying to fix your emotions like they were puzzles and started holding them like they were flowers that just needed understanding to bloom. You once told me that love isn't a rescue mission, it's a recognition. And baby, I finally recognize you. I recognize the light you've always carried, the grace you've always given, the truth you've always given, the truth you've always stood for. You've been my teacher in silence and my reflection in noise. You didn't just heal me, you handed me back to myself. There were moments, though, where I still doubted whether I was worthy of this new version of you. You had grown so much, and I was terrified of becoming the shadow in your light again. But then I realized your love never asked me to be perfect. It just asked me to be present, and presence, that I can give you now, not as a promise, but as a practice. Baby, I don't think I ever told you this, but the reason I always called you my peace wasn't because life was easy when I was with you. It was because you made even chaos feel sacred. You made even pain feel purposeful. When you loved me, I didn't feel like I was being fixed. I felt like I was being seen. Now I understand what that really meant. Love like yours doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. It turns every mistake into a lesson, every silence into a prayer, every heartbreak into a homecoming. And if you asked me today what I want most in this world, I'd say this: I want to keep learning your language, the one that speaks without words, the one that says, I forgive you, but don't make me regret it. The one that says, I still believe in us, but prove me right this time, because love deserves proof, not promises. And I intend to be your proof, baby. Do you remember that day when I said, maybe our story's over? You looked me dead in the eyes and said, maybe it's just shifting genres. I didn't understand it then, but now I do. Our story didn't end. It evolved. It stopped being a tragedy and became a testimony. A story about how two souls can lose themselves, find their way back and still love from a higher place, not from fear but from freedom. Sometimes I think that's why God allowed everything to fall apart first, because some stories aren't meant to be smooth. They're meant to be sacred. And baby, ours was never about perfection. It was about transformation. So here we are, standing, not in the ashes, but in the aftermath, surrounded by everything we thought we lost and realizing it never really left. It was waiting for us to grow into it. And if the world asks me now what love feels like, I'll tell them this: it feels like coming home to someone who never left your heart, even when you left the room. It feels like being understood without needing to explain. It feels like forgiveness wearing your favorite voice. It feels like peace saying, I told you so, baby. This right here is my personal issue finally unraveling into peace. The part of me that used to break love is now learning to build it, and I'm not scared anymore. I'm scared of being seen. I'm not scared of being loved. And most of all, I'm not scared of you, because you are my truth. You always were, and I'm done running from truth. Baby, before I let the light finish what it started between us, I need to walk you through the last shadow I've been hiding behind. Every word I've spoken so far has been truth, but not the whole truth. There's a deeper layer to the silence I kept. A reason I pulled away, even when love was calling me home. It's not pretty. It's not poetic. It's the kind of confession that shakes the air around you. The kind that makes a man's chest feel too small to hold his own heart. But I owe you this, because love without full honesty is just another form of pretending. And baby, I can't pretend anymore. The truth is, I left because I was ashamed. Not of you, never of you. I was ashamed of the man I'd become before you found me. There was a version of me who believed that love was a transaction, that giving meant losing, that being seen meant being judged. That version of me lied to others, to myself, to you, not in the way that betrays loyalty, but in the way that betrays trust. I hid things I was scared would make you see me differently. The failures, the debts, the mistakes I made when I was still searching for worth in the wrong places. I thought I had to show you the healed man, not the human one. But you, baby, you loved the parts of me I refused to show. You saw my fears like open windows and still walked through the house. You didn't ask me to be perfect. You asked me to be present. And I couldn't, because I was carrying something heavy, something I was afraid would make you walk away if you knew. Baby, if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, through the distance, the silence, the heartbreak, the prayers whispered into empty rooms, it's that love is never lost. It just transforms. It bends, it softens, It waits in divine timing until both souls are finally ready to speak the same truth. And now, as I sit here under this sky that's witnessed every version of us, the broken, the hopeful, the brave, I can finally say it without trembling. I forgive myself and I thank you for never letting my silence become the end of our story. 'Cause baby, this isn't the end. It's a resurrection. The kind that doesn't happen with noise, but with understanding. With two souls who finally realize that love doesn't have to look perfect to be holy. It just has to be honest. You once said, one day you'll understand why everything had to happen the way it did. I didn't believe you back then. I thought the universe was cruel for making me lose the one person who made me feel seen. But now I know. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Every delay, every heartbreak, every sleepless night. It was all divine choreography moving me toward this moment of clarity. Because how could I have appreciated your light if I hadn't first faced my own shadows? How could I have held your love gently if I hadn't first broken every part of myself that was still holding on to pride? Baby, the angels were never punishing me when they took you away. They were protecting what was sacred. They were teaching me that love isn't something to chase. It's something to become. And I had to become the man worthy of the kind of love you always offered so freely. I used to think I lost you, but I didn't. You became a part of my transformation. You became the voice in my prayers, the reason I kept choosing growth over comfort. And now, I see signs everywhere. Your favorite song playing out of nowhere, a feather on my doorstep, the scent of your perfume in the wind. They're reminders that energy like ours doesn't fade. It shifts form. It becomes eternal. And if I could tell you one last thing, baby, it would be this. You were never just my lover. You were my awakening. You were the lesson wrapped in tenderness, the mirror that showed me both my wounds and my worth. You were the divine feminine energy that cracked open my heart so I could finally see God inside it. So now, I speak these words not just for you, but for everyone listening who has ever lost someone they loved deeply and thought it was over. It's not over. Nothing that's divine ever truly ends. Sometimes love steps away just long enough to help you evolve into who you were meant to be. And when the time is right, that love returns, not always as a person, but as peace. And that peace is where I find you now, not in the past, not in the ache, but in the quiet understanding that love didn't leave, it just changed shape. So, if you're hearing this, baby, if your heart still remembers the sound of my soul, know this, I still love you. But this time, I love you with freedom, not fear. I love you without trying to hold you, without trying to fix what was never broken. Because you were never the wound. You were the medicine. And as I close this chapter, I'm not closing the door. I'm just bowing my head in gratitude for what you taught me, for every lesson, every scar, every prayer that ended with your name. Because now I know what true love really means. It's not needing to own someone's presence to honor their impact. It's loving them enough to bless their journey, even if it doesn't lead back to you. But wherever you are, baby, under the same stars or on a different horizon, know this, your light still lives in me. Your love still moves through me. And your name will forever be the prayer that taught me how to speak truth, how to heal, and how to love without conditions. Because you were the reason I met myself again. And that's the kind of miracle that never dies. And to everyone listening right now, if this message touched your soul, if you felt the truth of these words echo somewhere deep inside your chest, then this was meant for you. Maybe your story mirrors his. Maybe your heart has loved someone through silence, through distance, through divine separation. If so, take this as your sign. Healing is happening. Love is returning in its truest form. Peace. If your heart resonated with this, comment below. I'm healing through truth, or divine love never dies. Because every time you speak those words, you release the energy of pain and invite back the energy of purpose. And beloved ones, if this story moved you, if it helped you breathe through your own silence tonight, consider supporting this channel through super thanks. Your love and your kindness keep these messages alive. Keep this sacred space glowing for souls who need to remember they're not alone in their journey. Every small act of support helps me continue creating, channeling, and speaking the kind of truth that heals hearts across the world. So, if your spirit felt something tonight, let heaven hear it through your words. Let love move through your kindness. And type in the comments, I believe in divine timing. Because maybe, just maybe, this is how the universe recognizes its own reflection. Through hearts like ours, still beating, still believing, still healing. Thank you for being here, beloved souls. Until next time, remember, you are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are simply arriving, right on time. And if this message reached you when you needed it most, leave a super thanks below to help this channel keep spreading light, love, and divine truth to every soul still waiting to feel seen. I'll see you in the next message. With love, always.